校長の鈴木です。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。それでは、私のパートをスタートさせていただきます。スクリーンシェアをいたしますので、しばらくお待ちください。はい、皆様ご覧いただけますか？はい、本日は、IELTS 完全解説セミナーでございます。内容といたしましては、40年の指導経験を持つ私の知見と、IELTS 発足時からの試験官ダイアン講師によります、英語の知識を運用力に変え、目標スコアへ近づくための実践ガイドでございます。IELTS の基本構造から採点基準、スコアが伸びない原因と対策まで具体的に解説させていただきます。構成といたしましては、まずパート1が私によります IELTS の基礎知識を深めていただきます。皆様はきっと多くの部分はご存知かと思いますけれども、その辺を確認していただくことと、また新たに知る知識があるんじゃないかと思います。そしてパート2はダイアン先生によります試験官の目で見た日本人の弱点と対策でございます。ダイアン先生は、インターナショナルの生徒様だけでなく、当校で多くの日本人の方の指導もさせていただいておりますので、この辺は非常に皆様参考になるんじゃないかと思います。そしてパート3でございますけれども、お時間の許す限り、Q&A ご質問にお答えし、また、答えをいろいろ皆様と一緒に考えていきたいと思います。本日のセミナーの後にお持ち帰りいただきたいものは、IELTS を正しく理解し、学習の焦点を再確認していただく。そして目標達成のために本当に必要な学習法を知っていただく。プラス、明日から実践できる実習法をお持ち帰りいただきたいと思います。はい。ではまず、IELTS とは、IELTS とは、インターナショナル・イングリッシュ・ラングエッジ・テスティング・システムの略でございます。IELTS は、ケンブリッジ大学の英語試験部門が開発に携わっております。英国発祥の国際英語試験でございます。ここが大きく違うところで、IELTS はケンブリッジ大学が発祥。そして、例えば TOEFL などはアメリカが発祥でございます。アメリカの ETS がやっております。IELTS の場合は、留学、大学院進学、就職、海外移住を目指す人のためのアカデミック英語を査定いたします。世界140カ国以上、11,500以上の機関で採用されております。これは、IELTS はケンブリッジ、イギリス発祥とはいえ、現在では、世界各国の、著名な大学では、もう大半で使われていると思います。そして、実際のテストでございますけれども、リスニング、リーディング、ライティング、スピーキングの4技能それぞれを評価いたします。受け身の理解力だけでなく、能動的な表現力も問われます。ここ非常に重要です。受け身の理解力だけではなく、能動的な表現力も問われます。これに関してはまた次に詳しくご説明させていただきます。日本人が誤解している査定基準。多くの日本人受験者は、リーディングやリスニングでは高得点を取れる一方、ライティングとスピーキングで伸び悩みます。これは査定は英語力だけでなく、論理的な説明力や説得力も査定されているため、その訓練が不足しているという理由からです。ここが非常に日本人の方が見逃しがちな知識なんですけれども、IELTS は知識を得るだけではない。それをいかに自分が使えるか、それを使って自分の意見を表現できるか、そこも査定されておりますので、そこも非常に訓練が必要な、テストです。では、アカデミックとジェネラルトレーニング が IELTS には2種類ございますけれども、何が違うんでしょうか。テストそのもののリスニングとスピーキングのパートは同一のテストです。違うのはライティングとリーディングになります。まずアカデミックですけれども、アカデミックは英語圏の大学院、専門職登録を目指す方向けでございます。大学レベルの学術的な英語力を測定いたします。例えば、ライティングタスク1の場合では、グラフ、表、図の説明をする必要がございます。また、リーディングでは、長文の学術的テストが理解できるかということも査定されます。では、ジェネラルトレーニングは、移住、就職、職業訓練、学位レベル未満の学習を目的とする方向けです。日常生活や職場で必要な英語力に近い、内容です。例えば、ライティングタスクでは手紙を書くこと、リーディングでは日常、職場の文章がわかるか、理解できるか。そして、共通セクションですけれども、リスニングとスピーキングはアカデミックもジェネラルトレーニングも全く同じ内容で、採点基準も同じです。まず自分がどちらを受けるべきかを正確に確認することが対策の第一歩です。アカデミックとジェネラルに関しましては、当校にいらっしゃる大半のお客様、あるいはこれは世界中も同じ傾向だと思うんですけれども、アカデミックの試験が必要な方というのが圧倒的に多いです。というのは、やはり皆様、大学院を目指すために、IELTS が必要という方が多いからだと思いますけれども。ということで、教材から考えますと、アカデミックの教材の方が非常に数も多く、豊富に出回っております。ジェネラルトレーニングの教材は非常にそれに比べて少ないと思います。で、また、もし IELTS の受験の目的が、ご自分の目的が今特に必要ないけれども、自分の力を試してみたい。あるいは、将来何かで使えるかもしれないので、IELTS を勉強してみたいというお客様の場合には、アカデミックの対策をされることをお勧めいたします。と申しますのは、アカデミックの方が将来いろんなところに使い道がございますので、将来大学院に行きたいとかって思ったときにこちらをお使いいただけると思います。はい、そして、試験の形式でございます。試験の形式はリスニング、リーディング、ライティング、スピーキングに分かれておりまして、まずパート1、これは、のリスニングはアカデミックもジェネラルも同じですね。約30分、40問で日常会話から教育、研修に関する内容まで幅広く出題されます。音声は一度しか流れません。そして次のリーディング、これは共通課程です。共通項目です。60分で40問。アカデミックでは長文学術テキスト。ジェネラルトレーニングでは日常職場の文章が出題されます。そして次がライティング。60分でタスク1とタスク2の2本がございます。タスク2の配点比重が高く、特に重要な対策ポイントです。ですので、もしタスク2が弱い方の場合には、この辺は配点比重が高いですので、一生懸命対策する必要があるかと思います。そしてスピーキングでございます。スピーキングはまた共通課程でございますけれども、11分から14分で人間の試験官と1対1で行う面接形式です。AI 採点ではなく、訓練を受けた試験官が評価いたします。ということで、IELTS のスピーキングはどこまで行っても人間が査定しているというふうにお考えください。4技能それぞれに個別のスコアバンドが、出ます。リーディングが 8.0 でも、ライティングが 6.0 では、進学、移住の条件を満たせないことがあります。弱点技能の特定が最重要です。これはもちろん皆様、目的によって必要な点数が違ってきますので、その辺は何が必要かということを非常に対策する前に ご確認いただいた方がいいと思います。そして、よくあるご質問ですけれども、ペーパーテストとコンピューターテストの違いは何ですか？まず、試験内容、採点基準は同じです。ペーパーとコンピューター IELTS で問われる内容、評価基準に違いはありません。異なるのは、回答方法と結果発表のスピードのみです。コンピューター IELTS は結果が早く届く傾向がございます。そして、スピーキングはどちらも人間の試験官です。AI の採点ではございません。そして、どちらを選ぶべきでしょうか？どちらが高得点を取りやすいかではなく、自分が最も落ち着いて実力を発揮できる形式を選ぶことが大切です。例えば、普段パソコンで英文をたくさん書いている方はコンピューターテスト。読解中に書き込みたいとか、手書きが得意である方はペーパーテストをお勧めいたします。で、ただ IELTS のペーパーテストは、今年の半ばぐらいからだんだんその国によって廃止されていく予定でございますので、近い将来すべてがコンピューターテストになるんじゃないかと思います。そして次、結果ですけれども、まず大学別に必要なバンドスコア。例えば 6.0 から 6.5 の場合、学部留学の目安でございます。多くの英国大学学部課程、あるいは一部の大学院がこの点数を認めております。あるいは、ファウンデーションコース経由の入学ですね。で、例えばウェストミンスターユニバーシティなんかはそんな感じですね。はい。そして 7.0 プラスは大学院専門分野の大学。英国トップ20大学の大学院。専門分野の MA。具体的には、キングスカレッジ、エディンバラユニバーシティ、マンチェスター、ワービックユニバーシティなどはこれに入ると思います。そして 7.5 以上。これは難関大学、高度専門分野。例えば、オックスブリッジ、トップ MBA、そして法律、医学、公共政策系大学。例えば、オックスフォード、ケンブリッジ、ロンドンビジネススクールなどはこれに入ると思います。必要スコアは大学、学部、国、ビザ、職業団体によって異なります。必ず自分の出願先、申請先の条件を個別に確認してください。ここに、例として挙げました大学院はすべてイギリスのものですけれども、IELTS は世界中の多くの大学で認められておりますので、例はこれはイギリスだけですけれども、これ以上にもっと多くの大学が、この IELTS の点を使えると思います。で、IELTS の結果は2年間有効でございますので、それをあらかじめ、ご承知おきください。はい。そして次に、バンド6、7、8の違い。この点数が最も多く当校にいらっしゃるお客様が目標としている点なんですけれども、まずバンド6はどんなレベルでしょうか？バンド6のレベルは意味は伝わるというレベル。言いたいことは伝わるが説明が浅く、同じ表現の繰り返しや論理のつながりの弱さが残る。そしてバンド7、論理的に展開できる。主張、理由、例、結論がより自然につながる。スピーキングでは長く話し続けられる。多少のミスがあっても全体の明確さは保たれる。そして、バンド8は自然で説得力がある。表現の選択が正確で、論理展開も洗練されている。読み手、聞き手が努力しなくても内容を追うことができる。つまり、 バンド6から7の壁は単語量ではありません。自分の考えを英語で整理し、相手が納得できる形で説明する説明力の差です。7から8は、その上にまた説得力が必要です。ということで、バンド7では、IELTS の基本的な知識はもちろん必要です。それプラス説明力が必要。そしてバンド8では、プラス説得力が必要。そしてもちろんバンドが上がるに従って、間違いもどんどん少なくなっていく。というのが、これが非常に重要な、バンドスコアを上げる要素でございます。では次に、日本人受験者が伸び悩む典型的なパターン。よくあるスコアの偏りですけれども、ここにございます点数が、当校にいらっしゃるお客様の典型的なパターンですね。リーディングとリスニングは高いんですけれども、ライティングとスピーキングはそれに比べて弱い。このパターンは非常に多く見られます。では、ライティングで止まる理由は何でしょうか？設問に完全に答えていない。理由が一般論で終わる。例が浅い。段階の中心がぼやける。ということが典型的です。つまり、質問をしっかり読んでいない、理解していないために、それにきちんと答えていない。そして理由、自分がこういうことが言いたいという理由が自分の意見ではなくて一般論で終わってしまう。そして、それを認証づける例が少ない。そして、段階の中心がぼやけるというのは論理的にそれをきちんと説明されていない。ということが日本人が非常に、止まってしまう理由だと思います。そして、スピーキングで止まる理由。短く答えすぎる。抽象的な話で終わる。理由を広げられない。受け身の英語力は十分でも、能動的に意見を構成する力が不足しています。このスピーキングで止まる理由は、ライティングで止まる理由とあまり変わらないんですけれども、スピーキングで重要なのは、受け身の英語力ではダメなんですね。つまり、自分が相手にきちんと言いたいことが説明できるか、この説明力。そして、もっと高いバンドになるには、相手を納得させるだけの説得力があるか。これも必要になってきます。ということで、この辺は非常に日本人の方が弱いところだと思います。ということで、そういう理由から、スピーキングが日本人の方は弱いというのは、これはわかるんですけれども、理由がそこにあると思います。英語が足りないと一言で片付けると対策を間違えます。答えの考え方そのものを鍛えることが必要でございます。では、ライティングとスピーキングの採点基準でございます。まず、ライティングは4項目で採点されております。まず、タスクリスポンス。設問に完全かつ適切に答えているか。これは先ほども申し上げましたけれども、要は質問をきちんと読んでて、その質問にちゃんと答えているかということですね。そして、coherence and cohesion。論理の流れと段落構成が自然にできているか。自分の言いたいことが論理的にきちんと順序立てて説明ができるかどうか。そしてその説明は、レクシカルリゾース。語彙の幅広さと適切な使用。幅広い高度なボキャブラリーでそれが説明できるかどうか。そして、グラマティカルレンジ&アキュラシー。そしてそのボキャブラリーを正しく並べる文法がきちんと正しく使えているか。そして、より高度な文法とか、いろいろな文法を使いながら、それが表現できるかどうか。そして、スピーキングです。スピーキングも4つの項目。まず、フルエンシー&コーヒーランス。流暢さと話の一貫した展開。これは戸惑いなく短すぎず流暢に論理的に一貫して説明ができるかどうか。そしてレキシカルリゾース。状況に応じた語彙の選択と幅。またこれも語彙の広さですね。そしてグラマティカルレンジ&アキュラシー。 多様な文構成の柔軟な使用ということで、こちらもその語彙を、いろんな語彙を正しく使えているかどうか。そして最後にプロナンシエーション。聞き手が無理なく理解できる発音ができるかどうか。難しい単語を使えば点数が上がるは誤解です。4項目すべてのバランスが評価されます。自分の答えがどの基準で止まっているかを知ることが先決です。ということで、ライティングとスピーキング、日本人の方が弱い2つのスキルですけれども、多くの採点基準は同じことを聞かれています。例えばですけども、コーヒーランス、レクシカルリゾース、グラマティカルレンジということで、この辺はライティングもスピーキングも共通した採点項目でございます。ということで、この辺はこういうところも非常に重要だということをご確認ください。そして、この中で自分は例えばレクシカルリゾース、語彙が少ないんだとか、いや、グラマーがいろんな高度なグラマーがないんだとか、そういうことを少しご自分でお考えいただくといいと思いますですね。そして、効果的な IELTS の学習法。これは当校40年間のいろいろな知見からでございますけれども、まず第一に基礎構築。もちろん基礎的な語彙、文法が必要です。その上に、ここが日本人の方がなかなか忘れがちなんですけども、論理力。基本的にその力をつけた語彙と文法をいかに使って、いかに論理的に考え、それを説明することができるか。これは、IELTS の試験では非常に特殊な、必要な力ですので、この辺は、この論理力というのは非常に重要だと思っていただいたらいいと思います。そして、次に弱点診断。現状のスコア原因を特定する。これは、当校にいらっしゃるお客様には、多くの方はすでに IELTS を何回かお取りになって自分の点数をご存知なんですけれども、もしご存知ない方、初めての方の場合には、まずレッスン開始した直前直後に IELTS をお取りいただくことをお勧めしております。と申しますのは、その方が何ができて何ができないかということを私たちが知ることによって、そこに合わせた必要な指導ができるからです。ということで、現状把握ですね。弱点診断をしていただく。これも非常に重要なことです。そしてその次にそれが分かりましたらば、技能別学習。もし、ライティングとスピーキングが弱い方の場合には、そこに重点的に学習することで、総合点が上がることになっていくと思います。そして最後に専門家によるレッスン。実習不可な分野をレッスンで集中学習と訓練いたします。それによって目標レベルを押し上げていくことができると思います。これは IELTS は、例えば語彙や文法などはかなり自分で自習ができますけれども、先ほどの論理力、説明力、説得力、これはなかなかご自分では上達できる分野ではありません。ということで、そういう自分では実習不可な分野は、ぜひ専門家の指導で上達していただけたらと思います。では、ELT が考えます効果的な学習法。4技能はそれぞれ関連しております。先ほど申し上げましたけど、ライティングとスピーキングは特にアウトプットを試されているわけですから、非常に両方とも関連してるんですね。ということで、お客様の弱点を明確に診断後、一つの教育機関、あるいは一人の講師で学習されることで、時間の無駄なく目標達成をすることができると思います。これは時々あるんですけれども、ライティングはライティングの講師から、スピーキングはスピーキングの講師から、あるいは違う教育機関からという学習をされている方もいらっしゃいます。で、当校の多くの IELTS のエキスパートの先生は、いや、この学習方法というのは非常に時間の無駄があります。というふうに言いますので、これは先ほどご説明させていただいた理由からなんですけれども、できましたらば、なるべく一つの教育機関から、あるいは一人の講師で全体像を見ながら、レッスンをしていただくということで、時間の無駄ない点数アップができるんじゃないかと思います。そして学習期間の目安。最低6ヶ月以上、4技能をバランスよく伸ばすことが理想です。 リーディングとリスニングがすでに高い方は、ライティングとスピーキングに重点を置く戦略も有効です。先ほど申し上げましたけれども、IELTS は様々な分野のいろんな知識が必要ですから、1ヶ月、2ヶ月でどうなるっていうものじゃないんです。ということで、やはり最低6ヶ月以上かけて、4技能をしっかりと勉強していっていただきたいと思います。で、ただ、もうその勉強を十分されている方、それにもかかわらず、ライティングとスピーキングだけがなかなか上がらないという方には、そこに重点を置いたそれだけのレッスンも効果的だと思います。そして、ELT が選ばれる理由でございます。英国専門の指導実績がございます。ELT はケンブリッジ大学が携わっております試験ですので、英国にある語学学校や英国在住の講師は多くの指導経験がございます。特に ELT は40年以上にわたる IELTS 指導と日本人のお客様の弱点を熟知し、的確な指導が可能です。これは、IELTS はケンブリッジ大学イギリス発祥の試験でございますから、イギリスの先生方はもちろん他の国の先生方と比べて多くの指導経験があります。で、その中でも当校はそれに特化した先生を集めておりますので、その辺が当校が選ばれる理由じゃないかと思います。そして特に、元試験官による指導、当校での IELTS 指導は IELTS に特化した講師が担当いたします。その上、ご希望により採点基準を知り尽くした元試験官による指導も可能でございます。そして実際のレッスンですけれども、個別最適化プラン、それぞれのお客様の現在位置を知り、それに合わせたお一人お一人の目標達成のための学習をサポートいたします。そして今まで幅広い学習者を支援してまいりました。駐在員、外資系勤務者、MBA、ビジネススクール、海外大学、医学関係者、海外移住希望者まで幅広くの指導経験がございます。そしてまず、ご興味がある方の場合には、体験レッスンで自分の現在地を確認してください。例えば、何度受けても同じスコアになる方、自己流の学習を繰り返すだけでは、同じバンドに停滞しやすくなります。評価基準のどこで止まっているかを客観的に把握することが必要です。そして、ライティング、スピーキングだけが目標に届かないという方、もっと頑張ることだけでは解決しません。自分の回答や話し方がどの採点基準で止まっているかを知ることが最初の一歩です。目標や焦点がなく、もっと頑張る。頑張っていただくのは素晴らしいんですけれども、ただ、闇雲に頑張るんじゃなくて、焦点を当てて自分の必要なことを焦点を当てて勉強していただけたらと思います。そして IELTS 体験レッスンで現状診断対策プランを一緒に考えていきたいと思います。IELTS 試験官を含む経験豊富な講師陣が現在のレベルと過程を分析し、目標スコアまでの最適な学習プランをご提案いたします。そして IELTS は正しい方向に学べば必ず伸ばせる試験です。まずは体験レッスンで目標スコアまでに何が必要かを一緒に明確にしていきましょう。体験レッスンご希望の方はこちらのQR コードからお申し込みくださいませ。では、ここまでが私のパートでございます。次にダイアン先生にバトンタッチいたします。Hi, Diane.
Hi.
It's your turn now.
Right. Well, thank you, Keisuke and Reika, and thank you for inviting me to the event. I'd also like to thank all of you who have decided to join us today. So nice to see so many people. So let me just share my screen with you so that I can, that's there. Right. Okay. So, so you've already had an explanation of the exam itself. I'm going to look at each of the papers in turn. And one of the things I want to raise right at the beginning is the logic behind the exam. So it's no coincidence that the papers are written in this order, that it's listening first, reading. These are the passive skills. And then you have the active skills, the writing and the speaking. The reasoning behind this is very well understood. The whole in the exam situation, the idea is that by giving you the passive skills, the listening and the reading, you are best set up to do the active skills of writing and speaking. Because perhaps when you're doing the listening and the reading, some of the vocabulary might, remind you of something. Maybe something else will trigger the structures. Right. So it seems to be joining in and doing things. Right, so it's jumped in. So why don't you get a better score? Well, part of it is nerves and confidence. The examiners really want you to do well. This is the whole point. It's about trying to create a situation where you can produce the best English that you can. All right, it's about demonstrating what you can at that point. So you'll need to think about ways, if you do have nerves, then maybe you need to look at ways of breathing. The second thing that we are looking at is about the breadth of language. Often people don't read enough. They don't have enough wide range of language. So that's something that you might need to have a look at. And maybe, so for example, you should be looking at reading from maybe through the British Council. On the resources here, they have plenty of reading examples. There's also business and general English. You might have TED Talks. These things will help improve your breadth of language. The level of formality is one of the other issues that sometimes, particularly in the part 3 of the speaking, people may start using words kids. That might have been fine in the part 1, but it's not appropriate maybe in the writing. It's maybe not appropriate when you're trying to give examples of more formal language. So that is an issue. Format awareness. I have had people come to an exam, never having done the exam before, never looked at the exam and expecting to pass. A native speaker who hasn't done this, who hasn't looked at the exam, is not likely to do so well, or certainly not as well as they should do. So you must know what's expected in the exam. You must be aware of the different sections. That is going to make you more confident about what's happening. And exposure. You do need to expose yourself to a wide range of language. So read widely. Watch TV. Watch videos. So I seem to have a timing on this. I apologize. Let's talk about the listening, paper 1. The important thing is staying focused. This is very difficult because it's long. So you need to make sure that you stick to what you have to do. Now on the computer-based exam, this is better because there is time to read the questions that you need for the section that you're working on. All right, so don't read ahead, focus only on what you have to do. Read the questions for that and be mindful, be with the listening as it goes through. It's very easy to get lost if you're thinking ahead about lunch or what you have to buy in the supermarket. So be aware of that. You only hear it once, so you must make sure that you are with the recording and not reading ahead somewhere else. Particularly in part 1. So this is important to realize there's this part 1, there's a section 1, a section 2, a section 3, and a section 4. Sections 1 and 2 are ordinary situations. The first section is likely to be with 2 people, and it's likely to be asking about addresses, names, spellings, numbers. So it's vital that you have those under your belt. Section 2 may also have some of that information. This is also where you may have, they may start doing distractors, where, to be honest, distractors are all there in all of the things. So if you have a multiple choice, you need to be sure that the answer is the right answer related to that person or in the question, not to one of the others. Section 2 is where you may well have a diagram to follow or a diagram to label. If it's a map or a diagram, you need to make sure that you follow it. I mean, don't be embarrassed to use your finger to follow it, or a pencil if you have the paper based. There will be information given and it will note certain things. But again, distractors will be given. They'll be talking about things that are opposite the place where you're standing. So following it through. So section 2 is where they're likely to be giving you, section 2 is where they're likely to be giving you information that is from one person. Section 3 and section 4 of the listening are for academic situations. So the part 3 is section 3 will be 2 people talking about maybe a lecture or something to do with a lecture or something to do with the college. Part 4 is a lecture itself with gap fills and things. If you have opted for the paper-based, please make sure that you are very carefully transferring that information and that you don't lose it. Reading. Now, this is where I know that you all get a little bit worried. And the common advice is really only useful if you're fast. All right, so common advice is read the text, read the questions, go back and answer. No, no, no. What I want you to do is, first of all, look at the instructions. Read those, be clear. Then read the title and the subtitle of the article. Go straight to the first set of questions, not both sets. They are very different questions. So focus only on the first set of questions and then go read through the text to find the answers to that set of questions. Then go on to the next set of questions and answer that set, and then go on to the next text. The reading is both for the general and for the academic. Although they are different texts, the difficulty in the text increases as you go through. So don't skip. Go through them in that order. All right. And some of the questions at the beginning will be just pulling information out. Other information will be looking at interpreting. You will also be looking at matching as well. So be aware of the kind of tasks that you might be doing. Particularly with matching, we're looking at relevancy. Is that option that's been offered, does that fit with the thing that you have to match? So this is where the instructions are really important. Okay, so make sure you know what you have to do. And the not given, people get very, very worried about not given as an option, but actually just read through and think logically. Is that there? Is it being said? Is it said related to that particular topic? Is it said by the person that's relevant? So again, it's relevancy. So in terms of reading, again, what I would recommend is reading a little bit more widely. I've spoken about, you can find the reading here on the BBC's the British Council's quite good with reading. You may also want to look at, I know I use One Stop English, but that's not available without subscription. So you might want to look at simpler versions of articles such as Breaking News. Sorry, I haven't got that on the list, but Breaking News English is a very good website for picking up general topics at different levels. So that would be helpful. And just ensuring that you have a wider range of input will help you. Right, writing, again, be very aware of the formats. So this is something where you need to know what you're trying to write. You need to understand the examples that are given. You need to know what a 6 looks like, what a 7 looks like. If you need a 7.5, you need to see what a 7.5 looks like. Now for this, there are so many places to input. In terms of if you want to practice, you have Write and Improve, which is free to certain thing. You'd have to join out as a learner. You can sign up to create your account. I believe that so many of them are available. You can start writing and it will do an automatic. There are some options available for IELTS, not so many. You can take but there are some here. And if you want other ideas, then obviously one of the things I would first ask you to do is make sure you have an example from the IELTS website itself. Okay, so if you're taking a test, you can get resources here. You can get sample test questions. It's taking a little while to get there. So you can find information here and samples. So please make yourself familiarize yourself with this website. There's a couple of others anyway, but know the formats is the first thing I'd say. You need to analyze good example responses. Know the structure. Okay, so you need an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion for everything. Doesn't matter if it's general or academic. You need clear paragraphing. Very, very important. And look at some of those examples. Steal some of the phrasing. All right. Paragraphing is really, really important. Examiners will look at that first and foremost. If your text is one piece of text and there's no paragraphing, the chances are it's a 6 or below. That's almost immediately. Then the vocabulary has to persuade us, but paragraphing is essential. You need a clear structure. So I spoke about having an introduction, which in the case of your task 1 academic is describing the text, the graph. It also is likely to be in the present tense. The body paragraphs, you need to divide the information up. That might be because of it might be by gender, it might be by year group, it might be by so there has to be a clear structure and then a conclusion. Same for your task 2, clear structure. Your introduction should paraphrase, and this is key, paraphrase the brief. Do not try and avoid, you must try and avoid using exactly the same words that are in the brief. You want to paraphrase that, put it in your own words, and maybe link it to an example or something interesting. In part 2, in the second task 2. In task 1, you just want to describe what's there. If you're a general student, you need to remember what the conventions are. So if you are writing a letter, you need to remember things like, if it's an informal letter, you need to remember to say, refer to your previous correspondence, or say something, say, oh, it's been ages since I spoke to you. You need to have those kind of conventions that would be expected. All right, but clear structure, beginning, middle, end. You want to avoid repetition because this is showing off. You want to use as many, as many different words for the same thing as possible. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but you need to try and rephrase what you're saying in different ways. So avoiding repetition is excellent, and using different kinds of structures is also important. Now we talk about structures. We're looking for also in your writing, we want that communication and flow. So we're looking for the structured vocabulary. We're looking for structured linking. We're also looking for not absolutisms. This will happen. Well, we want maybe it may, you need to have that flexibility in language as you go up to the higher levels. if you have excellent vocabulary and really complex structures, but the communication isn't there, we don't know what you're talking about, then that really is going to impact the mark that you get. All right, so it's actually as important. Your actual understanding, your meaning, that has to come first. And then the fancy vocabulary and the structures, that comes next, guys. So I wanted you to see what I meant by white space. So these are two examples of a task 1 academic. Now you can see the one on the left-hand side is just a wall of words. That is actually difficult to read. This gives me much more, the one on the right gives me much more confidence. I can see white space between the paragraphs. This is absolutely vital. I know some of you will have been told to indent, and that's fine. It's not. I want to see a clear space between paragraphs. That makes it really, really clear to the examiner that you've really thought about it, and it gives a positive impression right from the start. So I'm expecting this to be above a 6, straight, just looking at it. Because I can tell that this has got an introduction, it's got a middle, and there's some details. I mean, I think this could have a conclusion. It's missing a little bit here, but I can see immediately. So white space is important. Also talk about band differences. So let's have a look at, this is from a task 1. I think it's a line graph. And it's the introduction. Now, the purpose of the introduction in the task 1 academic is actually to describe what you can see. Okay, so let's look at the band 6, which is what we call competent. The bar chart shows how many men and women were in further education in Britain in 1970, 71, 1980, 81, and 1990, 91. It also shows if they were studying part-time or full-time. Overall, more people studied part-time than full-time in all 3 years. Right, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is competent. But it doesn't cover all of it. It's kind of repetitive. The structure's very similar. And I have a feeling it's probably taken the words directly from the text. Let's look at the next one, the 6.5, slightly better. The provided bar chart compares the number of British males, word change, and females who participated in further education over 3 academic years. Notice, starting from 1970-71, so they've reduced the using of the numbers, the data, but they've made it very clear, 3 academic years. The data is categorized into those who studied on a full-time basis and those who chose part-time courses. Generally, there was a significant preference for part-time study among both genders. All right, so so you can see that there's a change in vocabulary. It's improved. It's more they're not this repetition's not there. And again, they've also included the trend, the overall trend in the introduction, which is something that we would now consider quite common, quite normal. In the past, the trend often ended up as the conclusion, but these days the trend is put in with the introduction before you go into detail. Okay, so let's look at the band 7+, the very good. The bar chart compares the participation of men and women in British further education during 3 separate academic sessions between 1970 and 1991, distinguishing between full-time and part-time enrolment. Over the 2-decade period, while part-time study remained the most common choice for both sexes, there was a notable upward trend in the total number of female students. Sorry, it's just gone back a bit. Let me just go back. So you'll note from here that, again, we've got an uptick in the way that the word that males and females are mentioned. You'll notice that, again, there's more complex, longer sentencing in the structure. And there's actually a more detailed understanding of the trend. And that's what we'd be looking for in the next part. Right, when it comes to the last paper, the speaking one, people get very worried about. And remember, the most important thing is know the exam. You really need to watch examples. So examples are all available on YouTube. And it's worth listening to them. So you'd be surprised that some people, I think this particular character, this example, the student herself is actually quite slow and thoughtful in her contributions, but she doesn't lose continuity, and that's a real major difference. So you can speak really fast but get lost. If you are a slow speaker but you maintain the conversation, an examiner can tell when you're listening, when you're looking for words, or whether you're looking for an explanation, an idea. Believe you or me, we can tell the difference when it's about words or when it's about looking for a concept. So be familiar with the format. The format here is in 3 sections. You have part 1, where you're talking about personal things. And one of those topics will be a topic that you must do. It will be one of these ones. It'll be about work or study or your home or your neighborhood. It will be that topic. You will have 2 other topics and around about 4 or 5 questions per topic that need to be covered within 4 minutes and 4 minutes 40 seconds. So it's important, and the examiner at this point cannot say anything other than the question that's on the sheet. They can choose the topic ahead of time. Examiners tend to do that because they have to cover all of the topics and all of the things so that no 2 candidates have the same exam. It's not possible. Everybody has something different, but it's all based on the same exam options. So you will have 3 random, well, 1 topic is likely as to be what I said, 2 other very random topics. If the second part is where you're going to be giving up to 2 minutes, where you talk about a particular topic, and that allows the examiner to listen at a longer period, gives them a much better chance to see what structures you're using, be aware if you're pushing towards the higher levels of structures and vocabulary. Then from that, you will have a related part 3. This is where the examiner can be a bit more flexible. Yes, the questions are set out. Yes, they have questions that they must cover, but they have more flexibility. The follow-up questions won't be just why. They'll be related to what you say. So you have to follow what the examiner's actually asking of you. So these are very different. The part 3 is much more interactive. The part 3 is also pushing you to see how much you're getting. So if you feel that it's getting hard, it's because the examiner is pushing you to see how much more they can get out of you. So it's a good sign. It's positive. I know you might not think it, but it is. All right, but know the exam, watch examples, understand how it works. Please don't have any scripts. It's what examiners loathe. It's really tricky. If somebody starts on a script, we have to interrupt you and change the topic completely. And so that may mean that you end up, particularly in part 1, you may end up with really difficult topics simply because you've been using a script and the examiner has no choice but to choose something else. If you don't hear a question, if you're unsure of the question, then before, and this is important, before you start speaking, ask. So if there's a word in there that you don't know and you really can't answer it, then tell the examiner, I don't understand this word. All right? And then continue. Okay? It's all right to do so. If you are struggling a little bit and a bit panicky, then use the thinking time phrases. So things like, well, oh, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought of that before. Let me just think about that. So those phrases are very useful just to give you that little bit longer before you start responding. Okay, and what they do also do is they show that you have that ability to keep continuity. So that really helps with the communication element of the criteria. Now, every question needs about a 3 to 4 sentence response. I'm not keen on saying sentences because often it's more about ideas. If you have 3 or 4 ideas, you might actually link them into one complex structure. So it's about that. And if you do need to give examples, give personal ones. The examiner's not going to remember it after the session, so don't worry about telling them anything. They'll have forgotten it about 2 minutes later. But it does make it more real to you, and you're going to be a little bit more confident saying something you believe. Opinions. Give your opinions. Give clear opinions and justify them. Why do you think that? Give an example. And don't just have that absolute, this will happen, that must be true. Use the may, the might, it could. Some people might think, a few think this, some think that, most believe this. All right, so again, we're looking at alternatives. As you go up the scale, idioms clearly will get you a little bit of extra leeway in your speaking, okay? So when it comes to range, idioms are good, but make sure you know how to use them and use them correctly. Also know your weaknesses. So if, in terms of pronunciation, if you have a difficulty with R, now the main problem with R, it's in the same position. There's your tongue, there's your mouth. The R is sitting in the middle of it's a resting position. The L is up here with a firm touch, okay? So know your weaknesses, and if it is a real problem, and there is an alternative word, then use the alternative word. Don't be a hero. There's no need. Right, so here's some examples. Can you tell me about the neighborhood where you live? So a band 6 might say, I live in a small neighborhood in the suburbs of my city. It is a very quiet place and there are many trees. My house is near a big park where I go for a walk every morning. There are some shops and a supermarket near my home, so it is very convenient for buying food. I like living there because the neighbours are friendly and it is not too noisy. This is actually quite good, but you noticed the way I delivered it. It sounded a bit staccato. You want natural chunking to make it sound better. And in terms of, and you also want to change up the structures. These are all very simple sentences. Well, not quite completely simple, but quite simple sentences. Let's look at the better version. I currently reside in a vibrant residential area on the outskirts of the city. What I appreciate most about it is the perfect balance between urban convenience and natural beauty. For instance, my apartment is just a stone's throw away from a lush public park. While it's generally a peaceful district, it's developed quite a bit recently with several trendy cafes and boutiques popping up. It's a very tight-knit community, which makes it feel much more welcoming than the bustling city centre. Now you can see lots of vocabulary is being used, but as you will see, the notes are jumping up already. The first one, simple repetitive sentences. Band 7+, you're looking at longer, more complicated ones. sophisticated and idiomatic language is used, and there's a wider range of connectors. But mostly it's also about sounding, there's also that element of sounding confident in here, okay? And remember, the examiner really wants you just to do well, right? So finally, just the things to really remember: know the format, seek examples, especially for the listening. Be aware the listening, there are 4 sections in the listening. There are things that they're looking at for each section. In the writing, you have the 2 sections. Be clear what the formats are and what is expected. Same for the speaking. There are 3 parts. Be aware of what's required and practice the skills. Practice the skills with the timing, practice the skills under exam conditions. But you also need to practice without those, all right? So if you want to improve, you need to give yourself time to improve. And then also, so do a bit of both. Practice to be good, practice for timing. And finally, just enjoy it. Everybody wants you to do this well as you can do. Now, thank you very much for that, and hopefully you'll have some questions, and you'll see that the list of things here is actually for my, the list at the end has all the websites I've used, which I didn't go through all of them. I apologize, I was worried about the time. Okay, so have we got any questions?
Thank you very much, Diane. Oh my goodness, that was so useful. I learned a lot as well. Thank you.
I hope so.
Brilliant, brilliant information. はい、では皆様、Diane, thank you very much. もしご質問がありましたらば、お受けたまりいたします。Right. では、
I know it's a lot to ask, guys.
Yes, I know. Lots of information. Yes. もしご質問がない場合には、事前にいただきましたご質問の中から少しご紹介させていただきます。まず、American English and British English. Right. So lots of Japanese people learn American English in a school, and then, you know, is it? Do you have to be one of them?
No, I mean the exam was designed by so the exam is designed over many years with 3 exam partners, 2 of which are in the UK, 1 is in Australia. The whole purpose of the exam was designed to help identify students. That's where it started, so that they could check that they had the right level of skill in order to access university qualifications. That's where it started. There are many different varieties of English. We are well aware of that. And if you will see that we speak about that a lot. So it's important that you are consistent with your use of language. So if you happen to be an American speaker, American English speaker, then you won't be you won't be prejudiced against because you've used American English. We are aware of that. What is more important is about the right kind of language. Are you using the right register? Have you got the right tone? And you will notice that there are the criteria. There are 4 different criteria. You know, so there is a balance. There are checks and balances. But you will not be prejudiced against if you use one particular variety of English, as long as it's consistent. In addition, the assessors are checked regularly. They have to go through training again and again and again. And if you do, unfortunately, have an issue at any point, then you can ask for something to be rechecked and reassessed. And someone else will then, as the more senior assessor, will then review the paper. So there's checks and balances.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, there are lots of AI check after the writing, when student does a writing and ask the AI to check. Now, what do you think?
Yes, they're really okay. They're quite useful as what we call a rule of thumb. So for guidelines, generally AA is way too positive. And there are some AIs. So, for example, Write and Correct, the Cambridge Write and Improve, that was there before AI came out. Okay, and it has been designed on actual IELTS material. So if you are going to go down that route, then maybe Write and Improve is worth practicing on. But actually, writing in particular and speaking is about personality. One of the problems with AI is it removes personality. And if it removes personality, then it comes across as generic. You do not come across as convincing. And so therefore the personal approach, you need an element of personal approach in your learning, to be honest. And we want to see your character in some of the conversations.
Great. Right. So those are the questions.